Have you ever felt like the person who was supposed to protect you was actually your worst enemy? Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into a story that's as personal as it gets. It's about my older sister, the person who should have been my ally but turned out to be my biggest bully. From sibling rivalry to deep-seated betrayal, this tale isn't just mine. It might resonate with many of you out there. So, if you've ever felt alone in family conflict or struggled with a relationship that's supposed to be nurturing but was anything but, stick around. This video will explore not just the pain, but also the powerful journey of overcoming and transforming that suffering into strength. Don't forget to hit like if you find this story compelling, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get this conversation started and help those who might be going through similar challenges feel a little less alone. Imagine living in a house where the walls themselves seem to whisper secrets, where every corner holds a memory of whispered threats and stifled tears. That was my reality, living with my older sister, Emily, who was not just my sibling but my biggest bully. Behind the cheerful family dinners and closed bedroom doors, a different story unfolded, one where Emily's true colors came to life. It started with small things. She'd hide my favorite books, misplace my school projects, or accidentally spill something on my clothes. But soon, the psychological games became more sinister. She had this way of twisting reality, a master of gaslighting. She'd deny things she clearly did, making me doubt my own memory. "You're just too sensitive," she'd often scoff after hurling an insult, making me feel like I was the problem, not her relentless bullying. What hurt the most wasn't just the bullying. It was the isolation. Our parents rarely saw what was happening, and when they did, they brushed it off as mere sibling rivalry. "Sisters fight, they get over it," they'd say, unaware of the deep scars forming. In the dead of night, I'd lie awake, listening to the creaks of the house, each sound a reminder of the day's battles. My room, supposed to be my sanctuary, felt like a prison. Posters of bands and bookshelves filled with fantasy novels couldn't mask the reality of my dread when I heard her footsteps approaching. This toxic environment was my battleground, and my sister knew every weak spot, every armor chink. But as the emotional abuse escalated, so did my resolve. It became clear that something had to change, that I couldn't let this hidden pain define me forever. But just when I thought I was alone in this, a light appeared. Someone who saw the truth, someone who could help me find my way out of the darkness. Little did I know this would be the turning point, leading me down a path I never expected to take. Stepping into the abyss of emotional turmoil wasn't something I chose, but rather a place I found myself after years of being bullied by Emily. It's one thing to be bullied at school, where you can eventually find a safe haven at home. But what if your bully lives under the same roof? The damage wasn't always visible. Unlike bruises or scars, the wounds Emily inflicted were carved deep into my psyche, manifesting as nightmares, anxiety, and a profound sense of worthlessness. She had an arsenal of emotional weapons: mockery, manipulation, and most destructively, belittlement. Her words would cut deeper than any knife. "You'll never be as good as me," she would hiss during our most heated arguments, her words laced with venom. Each phrase was meticulously chosen to erode my self-esteem, each glance and sneer calculated to remind me of my supposed inferiority. This continuous belittling was more than a sibling spat. It was a systematic tearing down of my personhood. The home, which should have been a sanctuary, became a theater of psychological warfare. I started to avoid mirrors, hating the reflection that seemed only to show a broken, twisted version of myself, one that I believed was all the things Emily said I was. But amidst this darkness, I began to keep a journal. It started as a way to vent, scribbling down my feelings in a book that soon became the only witness to my innermost thoughts and the severity of the abuse. As I wrote, I started to see the patterns of her manipulation and my own reactive behaviors. This journal was my first step toward reclaiming my narrative, my truth. One particularly stark entry reads, "Why does she hate me so much? What did I ever do to her? Over time, these entries shifted in tone, from confusion and pain to a determination to understand and overcome the dynamics that chained me to this abyss. As I continued to document my experiences, I unknowingly laid the groundwork for a journey toward healing. It was through these written words that I first articulated my desire for change. Not just for survival, but for a life beyond the shadows of bullying. With this newfound clarity, I started to look for ways out of the emotional abyss, reaching out for resources and support, marking the beginning of a tough yet transformative journey towards healing and self-discovery. Understanding Emily wasn't easy. It was like trying to piece together a puzzle without all the pieces. As the older sister, she held a power over me that was magnified by our age difference, yet there was so much more beneath her bullying facade. As children, Emily was the golden child, always excelling in school, sports, and social settings. Our parents showered her with praise, which from the outside seemed like the perfect upbringing. But as I began to peel back the layers, I realized that the pressure to maintain this golden image was immense. It started with our mother, who had her own rigorous standards, having been a standout athlete and academic in her own youth. She expected nothing less from Emily, pushing her relentlessly. "You're a reflection of this family," she'd often remind her. The pressure was subtle but ever-present, like a tightrope Emily walked daily. Then there was our father, a kind man but distant, often absorbed in his work. His rare acknowledgments were gold, and Emily thrived on them. This dynamic created a breeding ground for insecurity, where Emily's self-worth became intrinsically tied to her achievements and our parents' approval. The breakthrough in understanding came during one of our rare heart-to-hearts, triggered by a family crisis that had both of us on edge. It was late past midnight when Emily came to my room, not to taunt but to talk. "You think I don't know how hard I am on you," she started, her voice shaky. It's all I know how to be. It's how Mom was with me, and I guess I thought that's how I should be with you." Her words were a revelation and a relief. For the first time, I saw Emily not just as my bully but as a victim herself, trapped in a cycle of expectations and fear of failure that she unwittingly passed down to me. We talked about our mother's harsh parenting style, which Emily had internalized and mimicked, thinking that tough love was the only love. This conversation was a turning point for both of us. I began to understand the roots of her behavior, and Emily started to see the impact of her actions. It didn't excuse the bullying, but it added a layer of complexity to my understanding of her. In the weeks that followed, I noticed subtle changes in her. The taunts became less frequent, and her tone softened. It was as if acknowledging her own pain had allowed her to start releasing her grip on the role of the bully. As we continued to navigate our complicated relationship, I became more involved in understanding psychological patterns and behaviors. I dove into books on sibling dynamics, attended workshops, and even spoke with therapists who specialized in family relationships. Each step was a move toward not just understanding Emily but healing myself. This journey of understanding didn't erase the past, but it allowed me to view it through a different lens, one of empathy and analysis rather than just pain and resentment. It set the stage for the deeper emotional work we would both undertake, paving the way for possible reconciliation and mutual growth. There's a tipping point in every long-standing conflict, a moment when the accumulated pain and revelations push one towards decisive action. For me, that point came after understanding the roots of Emily's behavior. It didn't immediately heal all the wounds, but it sparked a fire within me to change the narrative of our lives. I began to see the interactions with my sister not just as personal attacks but as a dysfunctional pattern that we could potentially break. My journey of self-discovery was not just about escaping Emily's shadow but about asserting my own identity, separate from the role of the victim that I had been cast in for so long. The real turning point was a confrontation that neither of us could have predicted. It happened during one of our family gatherings. Emily started her usual taunting in front of our cousins, perhaps a bit more emboldened by the audience. But this time I was ready. Instead of shrinking back, I held my ground. Emily, why do you have to keep doing this? What are you trying to prove? My voice, firm and clear, was unlike the shaky whispers of the past. The room fell silent. It was the first time I publicly challenged her, and the shock on her face was palpable. The confrontation escalated quickly, but instead of resorting to her usual put-downs, Emily paused. Something in my tone, or perhaps the unexpected courage I displayed, seemed to reach her. I don't know, she admitted, her voice cracking. I really don't know. That admission was a breakthrough for us. It didn't solve everything, but it opened a dialogue about our relationship that had been decades in the making. We began to talk more openly about our feelings, about the pressures we both felt, and about how we could support each other as sisters rather than rivals. This shift wasn't immediate, and it wasn't easy. There were backslides and days when old patterns threatened to resurface, but each conflict now held the possibility of growth instead of just pain. I started attending therapy, both individually and, eventually, with Emily. It was through these sessions that we began to untangle the complex web of emotions and expectations that had defined our relationship. As I grew stronger, so did my ability to handle conflicts not just with Emily but in other areas of my life. My newfound resilience was like a shield, protecting me from the low blows that once would have knocked me down. This personal empowerment was transformative, not just in my relationship with my sister but in all aspects of my life. The road to emotional resilience is often paved with trials, but it's also lined with moments of profound self-discovery and healing. For me, this journey began in earnest after that pivotal confrontation with Emily. It was clear that to truly move forward, I needed to fortify my inner strength and heal the wounds that had festered in the shadows for too long. Therapy was my first step. Sitting in that small, softly lit room across from a therapist who greeted me with a knowing smile, I felt a mix of relief and apprehension. It was here that I began to unpack years of suppressed emotions. Each session was like peeling an onion, each layer holding its own tears and revelations. But therapy was just one avenue. I joined support groups, where I met others who had faced similar family dynamics. These meetings were eye-opening, providing both a mirror and a window into my experiences. Hearing others share their stories of pain and perseverance, I no longer felt isolated in my struggle. It was comforting and motivating to be part of a community that understood the complexity of sibling bullying and the deep emotional scars it could leave. I also turned to writing more seriously. My journal, once a mere receptacle for my darkest thoughts, became a tool for reflection and growth. I started a blog to share my journey, connecting with readers who resonated with my experiences. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and the act of writing became therapeutic in itself, helping me to articulate and process my feelings. As my emotional resilience built, so did my confidence. I learned techniques to manage stress and anxiety. Yoga, meditation, and mindfulness became regular parts of my routine. These practices grounded me, providing a sense of calm and control that I had long lacked. The transformation was gradual but undeniable. I began to notice changes in how I responded to challenges, not just with Emily but in all aspects of my life. Where once I might have recoiled or responded with fear, I now faced difficulties with a steadier heart and a clearer mind. This newfound strength was not about building walls but about fortifying my foundations, making me less susceptible to emotional upheaval. This path to resilience was not just about overcoming the past but about building a future where I was no longer defined by it. It was about understanding that while I could not change my history with Emily, I could influence our future interactions and my own emotional landscape. Rebuilding trust, particularly after a lifetime of bullying by someone as close as a sibling, is no small feat. It's a journey fraught with setbacks and breakthroughs, often requiring one to reassess not only their relationships but their entire approach to trust and connection. For me, this process was about more than just reconciling with Emily. It was about learning to trust others and myself. After years of being undermined, My ability to trust was like a fractured bone, improperly set and weak. The fear that others might betray me as Emily had kept me on high alert in relationships, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. I started small, reaching out to old friends I had pushed away during my darkest times. Reconnecting was awkward at first. I had to navigate the waters of explanations and apologies, trying to mend bridges I had burned in my isolation. But with each conversation, each outing, I felt the walls I had built around my heart slowly coming down. Therapy sessions helped immensely. They provided me with the tools to understand and articulate my feelings, which was crucial in rebuilding these relationships. I learned about the importance of setting boundaries, how to express my needs without fear of repercussion, and how to listen actively, not just for what was said but for what was left unsaid. As my relationships outside the family strengthened, so did my courage to face the strained ties within it. Emily and I started to have more open conversations. These talks were far from easy. There were tears and raised voices, but also moments of genuine understanding and compassion. One particularly significant session with our family therapist opened my eyes to the patterns we had all been trapped in. It wasn't just about Emily and me. Our entire family dynamic had contributed to our issues. Recognizing this was a turning point. It allowed us to start functioning not as individuals guarding personal hurts, but as a family unit seeking healing. This journey also taught me a lot about forgiveness, not as a gift to the other person but as a crucial step for my own healing. Forgiving Emily didn't mean condoning her actions. It meant freeing myself from the hold those actions had on my life. Through these experiences, I not only rebuilt my relationships but also reshaped them into healthier, more supportive connections. It was a painstaking process, but each step forward reinforced the trust in myself and in the possibility of renewal and growth. Redemption often comes when you least expect it, and in the most unanticipated forms. For Emily and me, it began subtly, almost imperceptibly, amidst the tangled web of our troubled past. Months had passed since we started our separate yet intertwined journeys of self-discovery and healing. I was finding my stride, learning to navigate life with new resilience and slowly rebuilding trust. Emily, on her part, had been more introspective, often pulling away into her own shell, grappling with the guilt and realization of her actions over the years. The turning point came on a crisp autumn evening. Our family had gathered for Thanksgiving, a tradition that usually heightened tensions. This time, however, there was a palpable change in the air. Emily was quieter, more reflective, and when she spoke to me, her words lacked the usual edge. It was during dinner, under the soft glow of the dining room chandelier, that she did something completely unexpected. "Can we talk?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the clatter of dishes. We stepped out into the cool night, our breaths visible in the air. Under the starry sky, Emily began to speak, her words slow and heavy with emotion. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about us, about everything I've put you through. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know that I'm sorry, truly sorry." Her apology was a balm to wounds I hadn't even realized were still open. It wasn't just the words, but the sincerity behind them. Her eyes, usually so guarded, now laid bare with vulnerability. This moment of unexpected redemption set off a cascade of changes between us. It was as if Emily's admission had opened a door that had been locked tight for too long. We began to share more, not just about the pain of the past but about our hopes and fears for the future. These conversations were not easy. The path to redemption rarely is. But they brought with them a sense of release, a lightening of the heavy emotional burdens we had both carried. In the months that followed, Emily made tangible efforts to mend our relationship. She started attending therapy sessions both alone and with me, actively working on the behaviors that had driven a wedge between us. She learned to express her feelings in ways that were constructive rather than hurtful, and slowly, the sister I had always hoped for began to emerge. But redemption wasn't just about Emily changing. It was also about me letting go of the anger and bitterness that had taken root in my heart. I had to learn to see Emily not just as the bully from my past but as a person capable of change and growth. This required a reevaluation of my own perceptions and the dismantling of the defensive walls I had built around myself. As we both changed, so did our interactions. The sharp edges of our relationship began to soften, replaced by a cautious yet growing warmth. Family gatherings, once battlegrounds, became opportunities to strengthen our newfound bond. Our parents, initially skeptical of the changes, began to support and facilitate our reconciliation, acknowledging their own roles in our dysfunctional dynamics. This journey of unexpected redemption was transformative, teaching us both about the power of vulnerability, the strength in forgiveness, and the profound impact of genuine change. It wasn't a smooth path. It was fraught with setbacks and challenges, but each step forward reaffirmed our commitment to not just coexist but to truly understand and support each other. The transformation from family betrayal to family support is a complex journey, marked by shifts in understanding and the redefining of relationships within the family unit. For my family, this journey was catalyzed by the gradual changes between Emily and me, but it involved much more than just the two of us. As Emily and I worked on our relationship, it became clear that the dynamics that had allowed bullying to fester and go unchecked were rooted deeply in our family's culture. It was a culture where achievements were praised over emotional health, and where signs of vulnerability were often dismissed or overlooked. Acknowledging this was painful for our parents. They had to confront their own roles in the emotional neglect that had contributed to our toxic sibling relationship. This was particularly hard for our mother, who had always prided herself on being a strong matriarch. Seeing her struggle with guilt was not easy, but it was necessary for the healing process. Our father, who had often been distant, began to take a more active role in family discussions. He started initiating conversations about feelings and relationships, topics he had previously left to our mother. These changes in him were subtle but significant, marking a shift from passive observance to active participation in the family's emotional well-being. The support didn't stop with our immediate family. Extended family members, who had once turned a blind eye or even inadvertently encouraged competitive dynamics, began to change their approach. Family gatherings, which had been battlegrounds or performance stages, slowly transformed into safe spaces where we could be open and vulnerable without fear of judgment. This shift was facilitated by several family therapy sessions where we, as a family, learned communication strategies that fostered understanding rather than conflict. We established new traditions that emphasized support and collective healing, like regular family meetings to discuss anything on our minds, and activities that encouraged teamwork and bonding. The impact of these changes was profound. Not only did our relationships within the family improve, but each member found a renewed sense of personal stability and emotional security. We learned to celebrate each other's successes without conditions and to offer support during failures. As we moved from betrayal to support, the feeling of unity that began to permeate our interactions was powerful. It gave each of us the courage to face personal demons and the confidence to pursue individual growth, knowing that the family was a supportive base, not a judgmental tribunal. This journey taught us the importance of being a family that not only loves but listens. A family that not only expects but empathizes. It showed us that while betrayal can tear at the fabric of relationships, a committed, collective effort towards understanding and support can mend even the deepest of rifts. Reconciliation within a family, especially after enduring years of emotional abuse, isn't just about saying sorry or simply deciding to move past old hurts. It's about genuine emotional growth and the hard work of rebuilding trust and understanding from the ground up. For Emily and me, this process was gradual and, at times, painfully slow. It involved many layers, from untangling the knots of our past behaviors to fostering a new way of interacting that respected both our boundaries and our emotional needs. Our reconciliation began in earnest with recognizing each other's pain. Emily had to come to terms with the fact that her actions, however influenced by her own struggles, had caused real and lasting harm. For my part, I had to acknowledge that holding on to my anger and resentment was no longer serving me. It was only perpetuating my pain. We started having regular check-ins, simple meetings over coffee where we discuss not just our day-to-day lives but also how we felt about our evolving relationship. These check-ins allowed us to air any grievances in a controlled environment, preventing old patterns from resurfacing. But emotional growth wasn't confined to our interactions. Both of us engaged deeply with individual therapy, working through our personal issues that contributed to our toxic dynamic. Emily explored the pressure she felt to perform and excel, which had often manifested in her lashing out to maintain a sense of control. I worked on building my self-esteem, which had been eroded after years of being put down. As we each worked on ourselves, we began to bring new, healthier selves to our relationship. The changes were noticeable. Conversations that would have once devolved into arguments became opportunities for deeper understanding. We learned to support each other's endeavors outside the family, celebrating each other's successes as our own. This newfound mutual support was transformative. It not only healed old wounds but also helped us grow into better versions of ourselves. We became more empathetic, not just towards each other but in our relationships outside the family as well. This empathy allowed us to form and maintain healthier relationships, changing the very fabric of our social lives. The ripple effects of our reconciliation were profound. Our family, once a source of stress and competition, became a foundational support system. This support was crucial as we navigated other life challenges, from career changes to personal setbacks. In essence, our journey towards reconciliation and emotional growth taught us the power of understanding and forgiveness. It showed us that growth is not just about moving away from past pains but also about moving towards future possibilities. A shared journey that strengthens not just the individual but the bonds between them. The journey from being bullied by a sibling to finding personal empowerment is one of profound transformation and deep internal work. It's about turning a painful past into a powerful present and an even more promising future. For me, this journey has reshaped not only my relationship with Emily but also my entire outlook on life. Personal empowerment started with taking control over my own narrative. No longer was I the victim in my own story, but rather the architect of my destiny. This shift didn't happen overnight. It was the result of years of therapy, self-reflection, and gradual changes in how I viewed myself and my place in the world. One of the most significant aspects of this newfound empowerment was learning to set and enforce boundaries. In the past, Emily's needs and emotions had often overshadowed mine, but as I grew stronger, I learned the importance of valuing my own needs just as highly. This wasn't just crucial in my relationship with her but in all my relationships. It taught me that saying no could be just as important as saying yes, and that true respect in any relationship comes from mutual understanding and consideration. As I became more empowered, I found myself more willing to take risks, both personally and professionally. I started a new career path that was aligned with my passions, something I had been too insecure to pursue before. This new path wasn't just about following my dreams. It was a testament to my growth and my ability to overcome the fears that had once held me back. Empowerment also meant advocating for others who were in similar situations. I became involved in community outreach programs that focused on bullying and mental health. Sharing my story and helping others through their struggles was not just a way of giving back but also a powerful tool for my own healing. Moving forward, I carry with me not just the scars of my past but also the lessons they have taught me. These lessons about resilience, strength, and the possibility of change are now integral parts of who I am. They inform my decisions, my relationships, and my approach to life's challenges. Ultimately, the journey towards personal empowerment and moving forward is ongoing. There is no final destination, no ultimate state of being to achieve. It is a continuous process of learning, growing, and adapting. A process that I am now grateful to be able to embrace with confidence and optimism. With Emily, our relationship continues to evolve. We have our ups and downs, but the foundation of mutual respect and understanding we've built allows us to navigate them with grace and compassion. We have both moved forward, not just past our old dynamic, but towards a future where we support and uplift each other. As we come to the end of our journey today, I hope this story has not only enlightened but also empowered you. Sibling relationships can be complex, filled with moments of both tenderness and tension. If my story resonated with you, remember you're not alone. The path to healing and reconciliation may be rocky, but it's also ripe with opportunities for personal growth and empowerment. Think about the relationships in your own life. Could they be viewed through a new lens? Could forgiveness play a role in your healing? Reflect on these questions, and if you feel moved, share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation going and build a community that supports each other through the hard times. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our future videos where we continue to explore deep, impactful stories like this one. Together, let's embrace the challenges and change our narratives for the better.